It's time for the Manager Show, brought to you by NestBedding.com. Love where you sleep, the official mattress of the Oakland Athletics. Of course, use the coupon code Oakland to get 10% off your entire order. It's the skipper, Mark Kotsay, we're calling this the first shows of the year, so it's your first show of the year. How are you? It's been a while. We miss you.
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Really enjoyed the off season and took a couple vacations with the family that were memorable. And now we're here in spring training, and what are we 8-9 days in, and we're in the grind.
So for you, what is it like, or what is different in year two?
Well, I think there's a little bit more of a calmness, from last year to this year. Obviously, there's a little more experience. Going through what we went through last year as an organization, and dealing with all of the change, and it gives you a better understanding of what to be prepared for coming in, and I think that's helped me, and just in messaging, and just in preparation.
Last year was utter chaos because you had the lockout. There's just a lot of stuff. Then, as you mentioned, all the trades. You don't get that sense here. And what I get a sense is there's some confidence. And I was wondering, because just knowing you've always had a chip on your shoulder. It's like, do these players, are they going to have a chip on their shoulder coming in, knowing that a lot of people are doubting them, and it's time to prove all these people wrong because it's a reflection on them?
Well, industry-wide, I think, you're right. There's very low expectations on this ball club to compete to win. But that doesn't exist in that locker room. As you talked about, a lot of those guys in that locker room, they do have something to prove. There's been more change in this organization throughout the offseason. There's been more acquisition of talent. That talent is unproven. And whenever you have unproven talent, you got something to look forward to. This year is going to be exciting. There's a lot of young, new faces here, and that can have impact on this ball club. And if you reflect back, to our history and the lineage of the A's, pitching being one of them, with when Zito, Hudson, Mulder kind of came up together, they kind of competed together, they kind of fed off one another. And I think we might have that type of environment that we're trying to create here with some of these young arms as well.
No doubt about it. I mean, some of these kids that we're talking to, we just talked to James Caprillion. Kyle Muller's an impressive, very impressive young man. Like, I really haven't seen the stuff. We've heard about it, but just talking to him, the makeup that he wants to be the guy. He's already said, I'm done with the minor leagues. I'm here to be here. I mean, he's got that confidence. I want that confidence. A guy that had that confidence was this guy right here back in the day. I mean, you got a lot of confident young arms. I think you have to be excited about that.
Yeah, no question. Anytime you've got young arms and you can see that confidence in them, you got to be excited about it. And, for Kyle, for Ken Waldachuk, for JP Sears, for Adrian Martinez, for Luis Medina, who's walking by right now, another young, talented arm that was acquired last year. You see the upside and you see the potential, and now it's time for them to go out and prove themselves at the major league level and do it consistently every day or every fifth day.
And then I think you have to be excited about the back of your bullpen when you add May, and you got a year now under the belt of Jimenez and Jackson. You start seeing how you can finish games. Now that you've got to see it, how do you feel about it?
No, yeah, great. Obviously, we haven't seen May in a game, and we've seen him from the other side.
Yeah.
And, you described him well. He's a competitor, wants the ball in high leverage situations. For Danny Jimenez, who, unfortunately didn't get to finish out the year, but, throughout the course of the season when he was healthy, he closed, I think, 11, 12 games for us. And you could see the ice in the veins, and, those big moments he didn't shy away from them. So there's other names in that bullpen down there that had tremendous years for us, that were young, that got their feet wet. And now you just look for that continued growth. Zach Jackson, is a name that comes to the front of my mind when we talk about young players taking the next step. Success he had last year, can build off that. Domingo Acevedo, 70 appearances last year out of our bullpen.
Amazing, by the way.
So all those names, you just start, you get excited about
Sammy Spin Rate, Sam Mole.
Yeah, Sammy Mole. Another year under Kirby Snead's belt that, he can build off of. He finished the year great. He had some ups and downs throughout the course of the season, but he never wavered, always wanted the ball. You got to love that about those guys.
Now, I talked about this a lot yesterday when, for years we've been called the swinging A's. and I kind of want to change some T-shirts and call us the Running A's because I'm starting to look at how the team's been built. I'm starting to think of these pitch timers that we're seeing all over the place. I'm thinking about how many right-handed pitchers have horrible moves, and they only get to do it so many times. And I'm thinking as a base stealer, when that clock starts hitting 16, 17, I'm gone. I mean, are we going to become the running A's?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't want to correct you, but I have to because once it hits 16, it's a ball.
Well,
runners on base, you get what, 20 seconds
get
or
20,
15?
I'm talking with
You're
the
right.
runner.
Okay. So yes, with runners on, you get 20 seconds. So yeah, when it's counting down to 2 or 3 seconds left on the clock,
Wouldn't you as a player being like, I'm gone?
You're pretty much rolling into it. And we've talked a little bit about using the rolling lead when it gets down below 5 seconds and you're walking, you got some momentum towards second base. I mean, it's, we're looking at Jesus Aguilar maybe getting a bag this year, right? So wouldn't that be something?
We told Shea Langoliers we expect 20-20 out of him this year.
I don't want Shea running that much. So
Seth Brown 30-30.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm sure
right?
Seth is probably fired up about it. So Mike Aldretti could probably steal 20 bases. There he is.
Seriously,
there he goes.
I think it's going to go back to when we were kids. We were used to seeing Ricky Henderson with over 100, or Vince Coleman, or Tim Raines. I think you're going to get guys that once they realize, man, this is a big advantage, we could get 80, 70. I mean, that'll be the super high end, but you'll get a bunch of guys that get 20, 30. I think the game's going to change.
Yeah.
And that with all the athletes you have, because the days of us being home run walk team, there's going to be some guys, but I think we got to change a little bit. I think running's going to be a big strength.
I do think the game may, lean towards more aggressive base running, more aggressive, attitudes in terms of attempting stolen bases. It's proven through the data in the minor leagues that when they implemented these 2 disengagement rules, and in the minor leagues it was a little bit different because they had 2 disengagements, but it was per hitter. So even if the runner stole second, you didn't get a reset of your disengagements. The major league level this year, we're going to get a reset if the runner advances, right? So a slight adjustment to that, but no question, in through the data in the minor leagues, the stolen bases increased, I think, over 10%. So you're going to see some more running. From standpoint of our lineup, we got some sleepers in our lineup. You're going to see some size to our roster this year. Some guys that have the ability to make this ball club that, haven't been here. You think through some of the names, the simple names. Ryan Noda's a kid who's a Rule 5 that's going to get every opportunity to make the roster. We saw a little bit of Dermis Garcia last year with the potential to hit for power. Jesus Aguilar is a big guy. He's got potential to hit for power. Rooker, who's a new acquisition through the offseason, outfielder. He's got a chance to hit for some power. So there's power on the roster, and we might, hopefully surprise some people.
Defensively, are you better?
I think it's tough. I mean, you look at last year and the corners and the inconsistency of a guy every day at first base. You look at third base. We went from 280 defenders, right, in Chapman and Olsen to a vastly different, set of defensive skills, and it showed last year. But my expectation is that we do improve defensively. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I started looking at the team and the veteran guys you've added. You got a lot of versatility. How big is that going to play for you?
That's something that we talked about last year, and that the roster is constructed with versatility. Acquisitions of Aledmus Diaz and Jace Peterson. Both those players can play the outfield. They can play all 3 infield spots. So it does create some more versatility. You got Tony Kemp and Seth Brown back, who both can play the infield, second base for Tony, and left field for Tony, and Seth can play all 3 outfield positions and come in and play a nice first base. So there is a lot of versatility on this roster.
Is the best thing for you as we'll start playing games, knowing that you're going to have tough decisions, and that's a really good thing, right?
Yeah, it's definitely good. It talks about the depth of the roster, and those decisions will be made. Obviously, we're evaluating everybody on the roster, and I think it's a competitive camp. And like I talked about, even with the pitching, competition even amongst yourselves can be a great thing. Creates a winning atmosphere. Creates a mentality of grind and grit that we talked about a lot last year. And those are all expectations on on this club from my standpoint and watching them play the game. We're going to play good, clean, fundamental baseball, but we're also going to play hard.
It's that old iron sharpens iron. Let's end on this. For you, is there anything that you've thought about for yourself, changes-wise, that you want to see from yourself into year 2 here as a manager?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, is understanding. I mean, we've had some change on the staff. Our bench coach is Darren Bush, who's been, with this organization for 18 years. He's a great baseball man. Brad Osmus stepped away, who, I enjoyed having on my staff last year. I took a lot away from Brad. And, going forward, I think it's just the consistency of the communication, and just being positive. Even though there's stretches that you go through, where you beat yourself up, which I've done, last year. I'm going to try to stay away from beating myself up a little bit and stay away from the shingles and everything else. So.
You are hard on yourself. I mean, it is it, but you know what? That's kind of the fun part of the job, right?
It is.
That
the challenge.
You're the guy.
I'd rather me being the one beating myself up than the players. The players they go through a lot of failure in this business, in this sport, and I'm very familiar with it. I looked up at my career batting average and thought I was a way better hitter, and realized, oh man, that wasn't very good. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, we're going to stay positive. We're going to keep working. We have to be patient as well, but we're going to watch this thing develop in front of our eyes, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
The first Mark Kotsay show of the year, brought to you by nestbedding.com. Love where you sleep, your mattress, your pillows, your bedding. You go to nestbedding.com. Use the coupon code Oakland to get the deal on your order. How is your nest bed?
Nest bedding's been great. Daughter in college, she's really enjoying the nest bedding, and couldn't be happier.
First show of the year.
There we go.
Can't wait for more. The great Mark Kotsay right here on A's Cast Live.